I love this book. The Courage to be Disliked by Ichiro, Kishimi, and Fumitake Koga. These are philosophers, psychologists who study the work of Alfred Adler and Aristotle, and the philosophy of Aristotle. Adler was a psychologist around the same time as Freud and Jung, although he's not as well known as them. And this book gives a lot to think about. The title alone, The Courage to be Disliked. If you need this book, then that title probably grabbed your heart and said, read me. I'm going to talk about one aspect of the book, one concept in the book that I have found tremendously helpful. And that is what Adler and the authors call the separation of tasks. The reason this speaks to me so much is because I believe that all of us were created in the image of God and given stewardship over our life and choices. And everything in a good society hinges on the wisdom of the people in it and the courage to do their task and to allow other people to do their task. Now, they talk in that book about the different kinds of tasks, the tasks of love, the task of work, and I forget the others. I'll make another video about it at some point. But just that idea that tasks have to be separated. So I have 5 kids. So think about this in terms of parenting. I mean, if there's ever a time when someone could be controlled by you, it's when they're a kid. And it kind of makes sense because kids can't totally take care of themselves. But the older they get, the more you have to try to figure out, how can I separate their task? How can I not take control of their task? How can I let them have their task and their responsibility and face their own consequences for their own actions? I'm not going to say this is remotely easy to figure out as a parent. As they get older, you should be able to give them more and more freedom. If you ask my kids, they probably would say they need more freedom than I give them. At the same time, I'm not trying to control them. I don't want to control them. I'll give them rules and I'll give them consequences and then leave it to their task if they want to obey them. I think that's the way you should go about it. By the time when my kids turn 18, I don't tell them what to do, and I tell them their whole life, I'm not going to tell them what to do. It's your task. Where you go to school, how you pay for it, what you do for a living, what you do about your religion, what you do about all the way you live your life, things that I wouldn't allow you to do when you were growing up, you can go do now. If that's what you want to do, if that's what you think that you should do. And I may not like it, but I wouldn't dream of stopping them or using any kind of force or coercion or manipulation to take their task. And then the more subtle way that this happens is maybe you don't do something, but you sit there and you obsess about it as though you could. And if you're obsessing about what somebody else does and you're fretting about it, you're not separating the task. Let me set you free right now. In the name of Jesus, go free of living somebody else's life. Even your children, you've got to hold in an open hand. That is how God leads you. So that's how we have to lead them, trusting that if we lead the way, they will find their way. They'll see what's good in us and they'll follow it if it's good. Related to that, in that same book, The Courage to be Disliked, is the idea that when it comes to leadership, what you're doing is you're leading a horse to water, but you're not making them drink. You know that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink? Well, what happens a lot of time, especially in the church, is that we want to lead a horse to water and force them to drink. And let me tell you something, that's wrong. It's evil. Because what you do is you violate somebody when you make them do something. You can think that you're doing the right thing. This is what's wrong with totalitarians. This is what's wrong with cults. People have to have the freedom to make their choices and to make their mistakes, or they're not human. That's why it's not okay not to punish someone for their crimes. We don't look at someone who's committed a crime against humanity and say, well, they had a bad upbringing, they couldn't help it, it's determinism. The minute that we're totally determined, then we're not human. We're some other kind of animal. And I don't think that's the way we were created to be. You will never grow up if you don't learn how to accept your own tasks, and you will never have peace until you allow other people to have their own tasks. Let's just say somebody is nasty to you. That's their task. That's not you. That's on them. It could hurt, but you got to separate that out. That's their task. So how about when you're driving and someone's being crazy on the highway? So many times we get upset, and if you really think about it, is because you somehow took it personally. How dare they do that to me? No, separate the task. That's on them. That's between them and the consequences for driving like that. It has nothing to do with you, and that all the peace in the world is in that understanding right there. So that's the courage to be disliked. Hopefully I'll have a link in the description. You can buy this book if you want it, and I highly recommend it. I read it several times. Also, I would like you to subscribe to the channel. Now, my task is to make the video and ask you to subscribe. Your task is to decide if you want to do that. It's not on me, that's on you. If you don't want to get notified when these new videos come out, that's your task. My task is to make them. My task is to ask you to subscribe. Your task is to subscribe. I wouldn't dare force you to drink the water, but I'm leading you to the water. The button is right there. You see it? It's a red button that says subscribe. Just subscribe. Do it if you want. Have a good day.